Just coming back from a little tantrum. I want to make a short video on War Thunder. I really don't like where the game has gone. I mean, I like the concept of adding more modern vehicles to it and moving the battle age forward. And if you're wondering what's with this image on the screen, I'm just gonna let you notice something about it. Just something. If you're not able to figure it out, this is only World War II vehicles we have in front of us. We have the IL-2, 3 or 5, whatever it is, I don't really care. We got the ISU 152, we got the IS-3 over there, T-34-85. I mean, I really don't like where the game has gone now. I mean, I've been on this game since 2014, 2013, I think. 2013. I've put in more than, yeah, just recently I only passed more than 800 hours into the game. I mean, I'm all the way to the top in the German line with the King Tigers. I was H first, and now I think now I'm actually doing research for the 10, excuse me, for the King Tiger 10.5, but that doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is, my favorite vehicle, the Tiger 1 Aus H. I drove it all the time. It was the first true vehicle that I started, and I remember the day when I got the vehicle. You know, I fought and fought with the Panzer III just coming back from school, and then just get the notification that I got the Tiger, and this was when I was obsessed with the Tiger. I mean, I was making a goddamn I had a kit that I was making of the Tiger 1 RC tank from Tamiya, for God's sakes. That's how insane I was. Sadly, now it's an empty shell in my cupboard staring right at me. Once I move back to Europe, I will be restoring its electronics. But yeah, I remember I took it out. Devastating. I got the most number of kills in the first battle. I had fun with it. I remember the tricks that I had from World of Tanks, because before I made it to War Thunder I was playing World of Tanks a shit ton. I mean, in World of Tanks with the Germans I got all the way up to the E75 before I found the game not to be enjoyable. So I used a few tricks that I knew from that game over into the Tiger tank, and it worked quite well. It was all fun, and that's the whole thing. And then I started to play the Americans with the weaker vehicles, and I still found it fun because I had to work around the problems. So you cannot go head on with the Tiger, so you gotta work the other way around. But my problem is that now, years later, we got the British, now we got the French recently, and it keeps on going forward. But that's not a problem. My problem is now we're having postmodern vehicles fighting against pre-war vehicles, and I'm not this person who's fully obsessed with just, you know, it has to be historically accurate. You can never change it because it didn't happen like this in history. No, I'm completely fine with breaking historical accuracy. I mean, if it brings some interesting concepts, like the Cheery 2, it was a prototype vehicle, and I find it really fun that they decided to bring it into the game. That's not a problem. The problem is the way that post-war vehicles work. They didn't have the problems of developing during wartime. For example now, I cannot play in my Panzer IV Aus H. Why? Because the British, which are every time against the Germans, have the goddamn Centurion Mark 1. Their Panther copy, essentially. But unlike the Panther, they fixed the problem with the transmission, they got a better gun, and they got better armor because they had a much better time to develop it. Let me just find out when it was released. I got my iPad out over here. Centurion Mark 1. There we go. I misspelled Centurion. Okay, blah blah. In service 1946. This is a post-war vehicle that now I'm going against in my Panzer IV Aus H, where it cannot survive. Hell, my previous rage before making this was when I was driving my Tiger and I got one-shotted through the frontal armor from a Chieftain. And when did the Chieftain come out, for God's sakes? And I got literally 0 credits because I was trying this new tactic where it was Stalingrad, so I found this weird little spot that I thought I could camouflage my Tiger in. But before anything, out of nowhere comes this one round, which sometimes happens, but it's just the fact that it pierces straight through the frontal armor, not even in the weak point of the frontal armor, through the thickest point, and goes all the way through and kills the crew in one shot. This never happened before. Because I believe that before, the game was not fair, and that's where I think it was. It's this whole concept of making it fair that brought down World of Tanks for me. Anyways, okay, I misspelled Chieftain again. Chieftain Mark 1 tank. There we go. Come on, such. Okay, Chieftain tank. It's not giving me a date of release. Here we go. When was the first model? First released 1966. And this thing is fighting against a vehicle which was issued in 1942 and was decommissioned, but not out of service, in 1944. For fuck's sakes. I mean, hell, I remember one embarrassing battle, once again in my Tiger 1, because I just like to drive the vehicle around still, but now it's becoming a nuisance. And out of nowhere comes out the M50. That little... was it the M50? I don't remember. It's that little two-man vehicle which carries 6 recoilless rifles. I mean, not rifles, 6 recoilless cannons. And it's also just holding with post-war rounds, because that's when there was a big shift in tanks. That was when the armor got rid of it, when armor became useless, and you had all of these new rounds coming in, so they had to develop other kinds of armor, and this is where we had reactive armor and composite armor. But it's still just the whole thing. It's no more fun to play the Germans, the Japanese, and that's it. And I'm pretty sure it's gonna be the same for the goddamn Italian tanks, because they're gonna be stuck with very simple pre-war vehicles, and then they're gonna continue on with what do you call it? The name doesn't come to my mind. With wartime vehicles, like one of the premiums is a Pershing tank. And I know this video is gonna be long and there's not gonna be much footage, but it's just this whole thing. Where are they going with this? Because I have only seen it get worse and worse, especially with like the French tanks being introduced. The French lost early in the war. I mean, and now we got like the Lorraine 40 ton, which is able to... I mean, congrats to the French for developing a good vehicle, but still. You know, there's a reason why there's certain vehicles from the French which are like, what is it, not T4, the R44 is it called? I mean, that one, there's a reason why it's called the French Tiger, because it developed from the Tiger tank. They tried to use that vehicle to catch up with the rest of the world, because they were kicked out so easy in the war. So one thing that I would suggest for War Thunder to make is either make a separation team or an optional team. Essentially something equivalent to a filter, or a new battle mode which is historical per se. So you have like a World War II, so only World War II vehicles can join this game. Then we have Korean War era vehicles, and then Vietnam era vehicles. I would say that would work out if you choose those kind of filters. And so like if you don't want to change your what do you call it? your vehicle list, when you join these kind of battles, these vehicles are kicked out, like if you go to ground battles or air battles arcade, and just the vehicle is scratched out per se. I mean, that could work. It could be. It, I mean, it's just to the point where, how is it fun? Where okay, let's also take in the concept of the gun. I mean, with these new cannons that like the Chieftain is running with, you barely have to aim with it before firing. Of course, there's some aiming over long distances, but with the Tiger, after a certain distance, I gotta start aiming it heavily. Otherwise, I'm gonna miss the round, and I'm just really scared at where this is going, because War Thunder, it was one of my most absolute favorite games, and just to see it go down this route where it's not exactly saying fuck you in the face, but it's borderlining to that point. So if you made it to the end of this video, just put in the comments your name or whatever, so I know that you've made it to this point. It's just downing. That's all I will say.